Did you cover last week the PUBG roadmap that was announced for global event?
No, we didn't.
No.
So it's quite exciting, mainly because this is the first year that PUBG have their pro league and pro circuit, and this is the first time the OC region will have multiple events that we can get into. So there's a pro circuit currently being played, and it finishes next Saturday, and the winner from that will be going to London to compete in the Face It Global Classic, and I'm pretty sure that's 300,000 US dollars. Let me double check. But that's the first of three phases, and after the end of phase two, we get the opportunity to compete in Sweden for a similar prize pool, and we have three Oceanic teams that are going to be going over there. So we've never had the opportunity for more than one team to compete at an international tournament of this scale. So having three is going to be absolutely fantastic. And
Three's
then
amazing.
Yeah, that's
Like that doesn't
incredible.
really happen in any other game. I can't think of
it's
another game that has three teams going to a world championship from
yeah, this one
Australia.
it's a multi-regional championship. So they've split it so that because they want to include as many regions as possible. So Oceania are now under the Americas region. So we're put in with America, North America and South America. But for this championship in Sweden, we're going to be playing with Europe and the Americas region. And during the same month, the Asian regions are going to be competing. So that will be Southeast Asia, China, Japan, Korea. Um, so that's absolutely fantastic that we have the opportunity to play against the EU and America's top teams. Um, and then at the end of the year, there's the Global Championship, which is the equivalent of PGI, which was last year. So this is for a $2 million prize pool, and we have um, two teams going to be able to minimum of two teams going to be able to play in November.
That's awesome. That's a really
Yeah.
strong roadmap for the region.
Yes, it's absolutely fantastic, and a lot of the competitive players are really hyped about these opportunities because these are the official PUBG tournaments, so these aren't the ones that are created by third parties.
Hmm.
So there's still going to be a number of third party tournaments out there. So it could just mean that it's going to create more opportunities for our region to shine because we already have players competing in North America in their Premier League. Um, and that's because they have demonstrated themselves internationally at previous events last year. So we have Extreme 2G and Lynxy currently playing for Simplicity and
That's right.
um, Wildcard.
Wild? Yeah, wild
Yep.
card.
Yeah, two recent cases of success stories of exports of local players, which is something that always excites me. And yeah, having two from the one game is great. It just goes to show, like time after time, the players in this region, they have the skills. We just need the opportunities to prove themselves, whether that's people coming in and scouting them and then moving over, or having more opportunities for international performances as a team, like we see in Counter-Strike and other games. And so yeah, it's something that the more often it happens, I think the more not only opportunities that we'll get as a region, but
Yes, which is why more places at these international events is so exciting because it showcases our talent so much more. It's very hard, and a lot of the teams struggled last year because each region has their own meta and dynamic on gameplay. So if you've been playing and adapting to your region this whole time, and you're chucked in with a lot of high level competitors that can play a completely different game style, um, that you're used to, you're just going to go in disadvantage. So having more of people, more more people from your own region who you've been playing against, it's kind of like shifting the the main meta in game. But it's quite exciting, and we've got a number of other players who are playing in not the Premier League but in the Contenders League. So the Contenders is the league that feeds into the Premier League, and we've got a number of OC players who are playing in the Contenders League to get a chance to play in the Premier League.
So something that I really want to see as a consequence of having more players and teams sent overseas is having more fan support from back home. So something that I think needs to a lot of organizations and players together need to work on in the future is drumming up support from local fans, because a lot of the times it's local fans will be fans of like overseas players because they're the people that they see streaming all the time. They're the big names who have the most numbers on Twitch, and you'll see you might go to someone who's a PUBG fan in Australia and say who's your favorite player, and it's someone who lives overseas. Well, we have great players here too, and you can also be a fan of local players and support your Australian teams and New Zealand teams while being fans of overseas. It doesn't have to be one or the other, and something that'll help our region grow is encouraging local fans to be fans of our local players.
One an organisation that did it really well last year is Atletico. So Atletico had the opportunity to compete internationally, and Sweetloaf, she actually arranged for viewing parties and dedicated channels and promotion for fan engagement to interact and getting everyone involved, because it was quite difficult because these games were played at like 1 o'clock in the morning. So she was really hyping it up, and in the weekends when the games were on, she encouraged people to get in and join the viewing party and support the team, the players and the teams in chat. And I think that was a really great demonstration of how to get local fans involved in viewing our players over there and supporting them.
Yeah, definitely.
And the Australian scene or Australian New Zealand scene definitely does do it. My big example there is Renegades. Every time they've been at the major, you just look at their Discord and there'll be so many names that if you're on a low quality computer, you might just crash.
Yeah, I think Counter-Strike in this country is very well supported. I think it always has been. It's for Australia, definitely one of the strongest esports. So yeah, and the more often we can get players and teams overseas and get our players on streams, I think the better it's going to be for local fans.
Definitely, yeah. Like just bring flashbacks to Winter Fox when they picked up the ANZ team. Yes, that didn't end in a happy story, but there was still that Australian and New Zealand culture, that support from down under, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And it's always there. We are always a very vocal community that does support when others go overseas. I personally, talking about going overseas, and this comes into what I see coming from the region, I can see Greyhounds eventually going overseas as well. As another step in, I guess, the CS venturing over,
Yeah,
it's awesome to see PUBG's doing that. Like, players are going over by themselves. When I saw Extreme story, like, I used to play CS with Extreme a lot of the time when he was under, what was their name? Cool for Day Jays. That sort of Cool for Day junior team. Yep. And seeing where he has grown in, a year and a half now, a year and a half to 2 years, doing that by himself is amazing. To be able to do that as a solo player, it's a bit different as a team, when we compare it to how Vox Eminent went to Renegades, that was a whole team effort, a whole management effort.
Unfortunately, with the restrictions on the Pro League for this year, it means that if you want to be in the Pro League, you have to have 3 people from that country, either residents or citizens. So there's no opportunity for the likes of the top team in this region to be picked up and be able to play in a Pro League, which is a shame, because Pro League and PUBG means that you get the tournaments are all land-based. So for, depending on the season, PEL, which is the European, that's 3 weeks, and the Northern American one was longer than this. For those 3 weeks, you are in that location. You're going to be playing for 3 or 4 days, depending on what it is. And at the end of it, it's basically just one giant LAN over the course of a few weeks, and it's all paid for by the developer. So having that opportunity is absolutely amazing. And so Link C and Extreme are currently in a break right now, so they're back in New Zealand and Australia until the next season of Premier League starts up.
I just had one more thing to talk about on that topic before we move on to our last topic of tonight. And what I wanted to say was, I think for a long time, the local community has seen pro players as kind of like a meme. Like when you do get the chance to go overseas, you just get destroyed. You know, you might not even win a game. And that over the last 18 months, I think has changed a lot where when we're given these opportunities by developers and tournament organizers to actually compete internationally, not only are we, you know, winning games off world-class teams, but you know, we're getting deep into tournaments and we're seeing Australian teams now. Kanga Paladins is one that comes to mind, who is the top 3 team in the world, and that's, you know, happening more and more frequently. And the meme has kind of died, where we're not really just going to go overseas and lose. Now we're actually going overseas and there's a chance of winning, and that's when you can get people behind you and supporting you to actually have a chance of winning.
I think it also depends on the game, because it you need to have a competitive environment there to be able to grow and develop these players. So for the likes of PUBG, you need 16 teams of similar talent to be able to effectively practice. And you can't, if you don't have those 16 teams, if you only have 5, you're going to go into international events on the back burner, because if you're not, these other regions have so many more competitive teams than our region, and they're just constantly playing against them. Whereas in our region, we don't have 16 teams of the same caliber. It's something that we're lacking at the moment. So it's a struggle for the teams that are at the top, because they just want to get better and they want to do well, but they're not. There's situations outside of their control, which means that they aren't necessarily getting the best practice or the best way to grow and develop as a player. And I mean, that's the same for the female Counter-Strike scene in Australia. We have pretty much one key Counter-Strike team, and that's the Carnage women's team. And I was chatting to them, and it's the same. They just don't have the opportunity to practice within their own region. And you can say, okay, well, why don't you just practice against your SEA or Asian equivalents? But they're going into it in a disadvantage, because they're going to be playing on servers with 200, 300 pings, so that they're not getting the best experience. And so I think that if the competitive culture and scene around each game is really important to grow, so that these players that are on the higher level can go into the international stage with the best footing and groundwork and experience there is.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to talk about on this topic, and probably one for another week, I think.